The psychology of people who feel invisible. There's a kind of loneliness that doesn't look lonely from the outside. It doesn't cry loudly. It doesn't seek attention. It doesn't even complain. It simply sits quietly inside someone, while the world moves around them as if they aren't really there. This is the psychology of people who feel invisible, not unseen in a literal sense, but unseen in the places that matter most. In conversations, in relationships, in their families, and sometimes even inside themselves. 1. The silent contract. For many people who feel invisible, this didn't begin in adulthood. It began in silence, in rooms where emotions were not mirrored back to them. Psychologists call this emotional neglect, not abuse, not cruelty, just absence. The child who waited to be noticed, who brought home drawings no one commented on, who learned to speak softly because loud voices were already taken, who learned that needing too much was the fastest way to become a burden. So they made a quiet agreement with themselves. If I take up less space, maybe I'll still be allowed to stay. And over time, that contract becomes identity. They don't choose invisibility. They adapt to it. 2. The self-erasure pattern. People who feel invisible gradually rewrite themselves. They stop sharing opinions because nobody listens. They stop expressing needs because needs go unmet. They stop celebrating themselves because no one else ever did. They become observers in their own lives, watching rather than participating. Psychologists sometimes call this self-silencing, the chronic tendency to suppress thoughts and emotions, to maintain connection, or avoid rejection. And here is the paradox. They silence themselves, then wonder why no one hears them, not realizing they were trained to disappear. 3. Hyper-awareness of others. Low awareness of self ***. Another pattern emerges. People who feel invisible often become deeply aware of others. They read the room. They notice tone shifts. They feel the emotional climate before anyone else does. This comes from hypervigilance, the nervous system staying alert to ensure safety and belonging. They become the friend who understands, the partner who supports, the listener who absorbs. Everyone turns to them, yet no one truly looks at them. Because when you're always the steady one, people forget to wonder whether you need holding to. 4. The internal narrative. Inside, a quiet script runs on repeat. I don't want to bother anyone. They probably didn't mean to ignore me. It's okay, it doesn't matter. But it does matter, because over time, this becomes self-concept, the belief that your presence is optional. And when good things happen, they struggle to receive them. Compliments feel suspicious. Attention feels temporary. Love feels conditional, because the nervous system expects disappearance. Psychologists call this internalized unworthiness, the belief that being seen is a privilege you must constantly earn. 5. Social invisibility. In adulthood, this shows up in subtle ways. They're always the listener, rarely the sharer. They go along with plans, even when they don't want to. They hesitate before speaking and say, never mind. They fade into group settings to avoid being too much. They might even dress neutrally, sit on the edge of rooms, position themselves in the background of photos, not because they dislike themselves, but because they learned safety through smallness. 6. The emotional cost. Feeling invisible hurts, but the pain is quiet. It doesn't explode outward. It sinks inward. It becomes a constant sense of being replaceable. The fear that love is fragile. The belief that your needs are negotiable. The sadness of being known for your usefulness instead of yourself. And perhaps the deepest grief of all, the haunting question, would anyone notice if I stopped trying? 7. Why others don't see it. Most people around them have no idea, because invisibility often wears a mask. Kindness, calmness, capability, strength. People admire the role, but miss the person. And when these individuals finally speak up, they fear sounding dramatic or needy. So they withdraw again. Silence protects them from rejection, but also keeps them unseen. 8. Healing begins with visibility, but not the kind you think ***. Healing does not begin when someone else finally notices you. It begins when you notice yourself, when you stop shrinking to fit the room, when you stop apologizing for existing, when you allow your feelings to take up space, when you speak, even if your voice shakes. This is not ego. This is self-recognition. Psychologists call this reparenting the self, giving yourself the validation that the world forgot to give you. And it starts small, saying your preferences out loud, allowing others to show up for you, celebrating your wins, even quiet ones, letting your presence have weight, without justification. 9. Rewriting the core belief. The deepest shift is this. From, I am easy to ignore, to, my existence matters, even when I am quiet. From, I shouldn't need anything, to, my needs are human. From, I disappear so others feel comfortable, to, I am allowed to exist fully without shrinking. This is not rebellion. It is returning to yourself. 10. The closing reflection. If you are someone who has lived much of your life feeling invisible, I want you to hear this clearly. Your quiet does not make you insignificant. Your softness does not make you weak. Your ability to carry others does not mean you deserve to be unseen. You are not born to be background scenery in other people's stories. You are allowed to take up space, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and the moment you begin to see yourself, the world slowly learns to follow. This is Ethiax, where psychology meets responsibility, and responsibility begins when you finally understand you were never invisible. You were simply unheard. Now, your voice comes home.